Welcome back, fellow shop rats. Today we're back on our 67 Plymouth Belvedere that we call the Golden Mullet. It's a legend.
At least in my own mind.
I haven't winterized this car, and when we last saw this car on the channel, we had done the 2-hour movie on will it run and drive. The block is full of water, and we need to fire this thing up. It hasn't been run since the movie, which was several months ago, 3 months ago at least. Um, and get this thing fired up and get the block warmed up and stuff like that. Because, well, we just got to get it ready for winter. And here in the cold northern climates, it's a thing. Don't go away. This will be fun. As always, it's about spending the day here in the shop doing whatever we're doing. And we're actually preparing ourselves for winter because it's November and it's been below freezing every night. And this has straight water in it. So we'll talk about that also. I'm Mike.
This is My Cars Shop.
So as we said, it's been cold and we've had below freezing at night and so forth, but I haven't been worried about it because we haven't had days and days of below zero weather. And there's always latent heat in the metal itself. So I've not been worried about it freezing, but it's not going to get any warmer as the winter goes on. And we definitely need to get this thing winterized so we don't break the block. It's not that I care about this motor, but maybe somebody else could use it. So there's no point in getting it destroyed because we know that it runs and, well, it drives too. I just checked and the float bowl is definitely dry in this car. And my gas can, or my little thingy, doesn't work. I was going to pump it in there, but apparently I can't. So I'm not going to worry about that right now. We'll fix that another day. We're going to dump some gas in there and see if she cranks over. It has not been run for quite a while. And last time I ran it, I did run the carburetor dry because I didn't have the gas on. So let's see what happens. All right, let's try it again. Battery, definitely, this is the one that was in scoops we just took out. So it's definitely junk. Just used a pair of needle nose vice grips on there to hold the choke because there's no choke coil on this motor. I couldn't find one and I didn't bother looking too much. So I just need to let it warm up now, just in case there's any slush in it. I checked it. I don't think there is, but let it run for quite a while here and get warmed up. Then we'll drain the antifreeze out, or the water out, because that's pretty much all that's in it. And we'll talk about a couple things here in just a minute, but let's just let this run for a while. All right, I came back in out of the shop. It is windier than a windy thing out there, and I'm trying to be sure I protect the microphone so that you don't get a lot of sound and so forth. But it's been running now for about 5 minutes. We'll make sure it's good and warmed up. And then I've got some old used antifreeze out of the Oakland we're actually going to throw in there, and I'll explain my rationale on that also in a little while. Yeah, it was a bugger to start. That battery that I was using, that Interstate, was the one that I had in Scoops. It's been in here on the charger for probably close to a week, and it like cranked 5 times and just quit. So that definitely was the issue that was going on with Scoops, unequivocally. Again, spend big money for a battery and get a piece of crap. Buy a cheap piece of crap and get a good battery. Go figure. So I'm going to stay in here out of the wind because it's, like I said, it's in the 40s out there today. It's not terrible, but it's a bit chilly. And so we'll be back in a little bit after that warms up, and we'll go further forward, or further forward, father. I don't know. We'll do something. Trivia question of the day. Where does the line "further, father" come from? Because it is from something. Our temperature gauge is indicating that it's warmed up now. You can see the temperature indicator is pushing out that magic smoke out of the cooling system. So it was pretty low on coolant, I know, because the radiator still had some leaks in it, as you remember from the movie when we had just kind of patched that radiator up. So it's got quite a bit of pressure in it now, but I know for sure if there was any slush or anything in the block, which I seriously doubt there was, because like I said, the metal holds the latent heat that's above freezing, so it has to be cold for a long time before that water in that block would freeze. Plus there was just a little teeny hint of antifreeze in it anyway. So we'll let the pressure come down, and shouldn't take long because there's actually no seal in that cap. And then we'll go get that old antifreeze and we'll talk about that. You can see the radiator seeping down there. I could put stop leak in it and stop it, but who cares? My main thing is I want to get antifreeze in the block so that this thing doesn't freeze. So we'll do the block drain back here. I got my ratchet out, and I can't really show you, but right down there's a little plug in the side of the block, and that's what we pull to let the block drain. And since it's just water, we're going to go ahead and drain that out, and then we'll go ahead and get some antifreeze in it. Okay, there she goes, right down into my drain pan. All good. We'll let that drain out, plug her back up, and we'll go from there. When I do a cooling system flush, when I do the first initial drain on a cooling system, unless the coolant is like horribly, horribly rusty, I do keep it in a big 5-gallon jug like this and keep it around the shop for these exact purposes. I wouldn't use this on a road car, but it's decent. This was what we took out of the Oakland after its first being filled up with coolant in 75 years. And we did a flush on that a while ago. There's episodes on everything we did to improve the cooling system on that car. But I like to keep this stuff around because it's not too bad, especially after it sits for a while and the sediment goes to the bottom. And like I said, I wouldn't use it on a road car, but for something like this where it's just going to sit, it'll keep the block from freezing. That's good enough for me. So let's go dump this out there. We'll have to come back in and get some more, I'm sure. But I already put the block drain back in, and we should be good to top that thing off now. Actually, this coolant looks pretty decent, but I know it had a bunch of sediment and junk in it from the Oakland, so it'll be all good. Again, it's about keeping it from freezing the block. I don't plan on using this motor for anything, but somebody else might need it. It runs decent, and for an old beater with a heater, probably be a good motor, even though it was seized up and hadn't been run in 40 years, came out of a swamp. There's a 2-hour movie on this car, and you can check that out here on the channel, where this motor was locked up tight, and we took you through the whole process of getting it broken loose and what it took to get it running and driving again after 40 years. One thing that is I don't know if everybody knows this or not. I don't know what people know, so I just talk about what I know, and that doesn't mean it's right, but it's what I at least think is right. even if your antifreeze is good to 0, let's say, and temperature gets down to 20 below, that doesn't mean that it's going to freeze and break the block, because um, antifreeze that's good to 20 below or to 0, um, below that temperature it starts to slush, and it would have to be at quite a sub-zero temperature for quite a while before antifreeze would freeze solid. And in fact, I don't know if it could get that cold. So um, you obviously want it to be 0 to -20, but if you're off a little bit, it's not that big a deal. Years and years ago, we used to have a conversion van, and I thought I had the coolant set right in that, and Becky was actually coming back from doctors when our son was just a little baby, and it was below 0, and the wind chill was awful, and she was driving down the road on the highway, like 40 miles an hour into a headwind, and the radiator slushed up on it, and the thing overheated, blew its coolant out all over the road, and obviously that was my mistake. It was fine. She happened to be right in front of an implement dealership, and they helped her, and I went down, and I think I sent her home with my vehicle, and they let me do what I needed to do to change out the coolant and get it to a better. They were really gracious. I don't think they're in business anymore, but it was really, really cool to help, how much helpful they were. And that's what it was the so wind chill means it has to do with the evaporative of moisture and freezing, but it's what the temperature feels like, so to speak. Although if it's 0 with a -20 wind chill, it's not -20, it's 0. But with the wind and that extra cooling factor, it hit that 0 degrees, let's say, or -20 on that day, whatever it was, much, much faster. And it just froze up the radiator. It didn't freeze it, it slushed it. So we got it drained out and put new coolant in it and drove it home, and it was fine after that. But so anyway, just so you understand that, um, I run mine generally around a 60-40 mix, usually 60% antifreeze, 40% water. I don't buy the pre-mixed stuff because I think it's a waste of money. But anywhere between 50-50 and 60-40 usually gets me in the temperature range where I want. I got to go fill my jug again. We'll get this topped off. We'll get it fired up, get everything circulating. We should be good. We'll let that circulate around. That way, if there was any water in there, um, it'll be fine. It'll circulate through the block. And, we'll be good to go here. So I'll let this run for a while, and we'll be back. So I've been letting that run for a while now. I'm starting to see the coolant circulate through the radiator, so I know the thermostat is opening up, seeing a little steam. I prefer to check my coolant both hot and cold, and just make sure there's no variances. But I know back in the day when I was wrenching, we always checked them hot particularly, but hot and cold both. And if you turn that hygrometer around, it also tells you the boiling point of this. I didn't bother with that because I've never been as worried about it. But alrighty, so we're just about done with this. We'll talk about a couple other things here in just a second. Just want to make sure that's circulating good. We'll shut it off, check it one more time, and then we'll be golden.
Because it's the golden mullet.
So a couple things we'll talk about here with the hygrometer. I do not like the ones with the little beads that float. I prefer the ones with the sweep arm like this. Make sure that your coolant level is where they say it's supposed to be, and also make sure that that little level indicator is right, because that will affect it. So you want that needle there lined up with the cross, and I'm just a little bit low, but that's fine. And then keep it level this way as well. Okay, and then you can check that coolant level, and we're good to about minus well, it's better than I thought. -25, -30, somewhere in that ballpark. And then on the other side of this, if you spin it around, it also tells you your boiling point. So we are going to boil at 262 degrees Fahrenheit, if I'm holding this right. So we're good all around. Like I said, I check them both hot and cold in a car that I'm driving. And this one I don't care as long as the freezing point is good. Well, I checked scoops while I was out there. It's good to -10, and that car will be in storage through the cold months anyway, so we'll be fine. It'll be in the building. Um, so everything's good. The rest of the vehicles have been checked, and they're fine. So we're good to go. Appreciate you watching. For those who haven't seen the Golden Mullet before, we are building a tribute, so to speak, to the Silver Bullet, which is a very famous 67 Plymouth Belvedere or Plymouth GTX out of Detroit from back in the day. It's still around. Jimmy Addison, I think, is the guy that owns it. Don't quote me on that. I'm terrible with names like that. But it was a very famous street dominating race car that kind of had some behind the scenes factory backing. It's a legend uh, in Detroit street racing for sure. And we are building a legendary tribute to it. We're building its cousin. We're building the 67 Plymouth Belvedere Golden Mullet. The ultimate plan for that car is a 426 wedge, which I have a 413 block. We're going to punch out to 426. It's going to be a 4-speed. I have the 4-speed. I have the motor. Going to be tube chassis, 671 blower. Ultimately, I have the blower. I also have a tunnel ram for that, so we may build this in stages. I don't know. It's going to definitely be a morphing process on that car. My thoughts on it at this point are I kind of want to, in some ways, just throw that 413 back together again, if I can, the way it is. See if I can get it to run. It was seized. There's episodes on breaking that motor loose. It was stucker than a stuck thing, but thanks to Aerocoil and a lot of work, we got the motor to spin. We got it to break loose. We got it all apart. We didn't damage anything. And I thought it would be fun to try to throw that motor back together again, see if we can get it fired up. It's just a matter of time, which I don't have, and a little bit of money, which I don't have right now, but that's life. So we'll see. But I thought, it might be kind of fun. We got the stuck slant 6 running. Maybe we can get the stuck 413 running, and who knows? But we've got all the metal to build the tube chassis for it. I've got the metal to build the chassis table. But it's just a matter of I don't have a shop space to start on, and I really don't have the time and energy to put into it at the moment. We've got to get stitches off of the rotisserie. We will be back on this thing hot and heavy soon. We want to get the Forsyth Duster moving further forward, and top priority is getting this 86 Dodge pickup paint job finished. I haven't touched that for months. I've been dragging my feet on it a little bit lately. I know I need to get after it, but I got to paint the inside of the cab. I don't like working inside of a cab, but I need to spend a day in there with a Scotch Brite and go around, scuff everything up and get it ready, prep to paint, and then shoot the inside of the cab. Once that's done, we just got to sand the back of the cab out, and we can shoot the paint on it. So got to clean the shop, et cetera, et cetera. All Becky's garden hoses are here waiting to be blown out because of the cold weather, and I've got to get on to other things today because there's just a lot going on, and that's the way it is. So thanks for being here. I appreciate it. Thanks for spending the day with me here out in the shop. And if you have comments and questions, drop them down there in the comments. We have merchandise, T-shirts, all that stuff. You can find that over at the Schultz Sign Company Etsy page. There's a link to that down in the video description as well. I'm working on some new hats. It's just a matter of being able to do the pre-order, and that's going to take some money, and I'm not ready to do that yet. But we've got all kinds of stuff coming, so be sure to stick around. We do episodes every Friday, Sunday, and Tuesday, 7 o'clock in the morning Eastern Standard Time. And if you've not been around the channel before, there's one thing that's essential. There's one thing that's important. It's the one thing that can change your life.
I want to rock!